Now, let's get back to Nigeria. Something happened recently. We started hearing in the news that French soldiers who were kicked out of Niger Republic, out of Chad, and out of Burkina Faso have found a way to some parts of northern Nigeria, and that the government of Nigeria was now in cahoots with these guys to resettle them in Nigeria just by the border between Nigeria and Niger Republic from where they had been kicked out. And when this was happening, there was a guy on X who quickly went and posted a video and said, oh, this is the proof that French soldiers were in Nigeria. We all thought that was the case. It turned out that was fake. It wasn't real. It's not as if there were no foreign soldiers on ground, but it wasn't French soldiers. We finally found a follow-up video that indicated that the video he thought was for French soldiers was actually British military personnel who were in northern Nigeria, actually, for training, they said. Okay? Military boots on ground. They said they were there for training, for logistics and all kinds of stuff. I watched the video myself. Now, after the guy who posted that video and said it was a French military group on ground in Nigeria had deleted the video, just few days after he did that, the current president of Niger Republic now went public, granted interview to a radio station or TV station in his country, and now alleged openly that Nigeria was working with France to destabilize not just Niger Republic, but the entire Sahel region. He said he could vow that French soldiers were already in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria, and he began to name names of the locations where they are. This is the current president, Chani Abdurrahmani of Niger Republic. And this began to trend all over the place. And people began to wonder, how can Nigeria? We all know the dark and evil colonial legacies of France on the continent of Africa. Even an unborn child knows what France has done to Africa. Even French people themselves know what their oligarchs have done to Africa. To the point that the former French president Jacques Chirac said, let's face the fact, if it were not for Africa, that France will go back to the ranks of the third world countries. Meaning that whatever France is today, whatever it is, based on the resources they steal and exploit out of Africa. I have done a two-part video in the past to explain in great details the whole breakdown of how the French neo-colonial policies work on the continent of Africa, which is why the French colonies in Africa are the poorest of all the colonies in the whole continent. They are the most humiliated. They are the most dumbed down. They are the most oppressed of all the colonies in Africa. France's colonial legacy is darker than the darkness in the pit of hell. And this is why every time France is kicked out of Africa, Africans are unanimous in rejoicing, in their joy and their celebration over that news. That's why we all join our hands together to fight. When ECOWAS was coming up to say, oh, we are going to use military intervention to restore Bazoum, the pro-French, pro-Western president that was there before Chani came to power. And we said, never, you will not try it. People all over Africa were up in arms and said it would not happen. ECOWAS was really planning to launch a military intervention in Niger to restore a pro-Western candidate or president that never cared about his people, that ensured that the uranium and all the precious materials that God blessed the nation with, that they were all siphoned to France. Never ever in his life did he think there was any need to nationalize the wealth of the country, which was what led to the coup. And the people massively supported that coup. When we fought, ECOWAS grew cold feet and pulled back. At that time, Tinubu had just become the President General of ECOWAS. Remember when that happened, for those of you who followed the news, France was livid. Macron was angry. His tone changed. He couldn't understand why ECOWAS would pull back from that obligation to satisfy the dark appetites of the colonial master France. Because ECOWAS, I can say this without any fear of contradiction, ECOWAS has no history of fighting for West Africans. These bodies you see are there to serve the purpose of the colonial masters. They have nothing to do for the ordinary African. Nothing. Zero. Put me anywhere, anytime. And that's why nobody loves ECOWAS. And I don't think any African is going to love them because they have now been outed as tools of neocolonialism on the continent of Africa. And so we said no. And they pulled back. And France was angry. And when France was angry, the next thing we saw was that our Bola Ahmed Tinubu was moving up and down. He was going to Paris, coming back, coming back. People began to rumor, this man must be going to appease this guy. He must be going to tell Macron to calm down. I got this. Calm down. I got this. One trip after another. And then not too long after, just several months after into his administration, we now began to hear that French troops were on ground. And the man who posted about it used a fake video. And shortly after he posted the fake video, the president of Niger now came out openly on a national television and said, yes, they are actually in Nigeria. And they are working with the current president of Nigeria. Now, if you are a spectator, a bystander, and you start hearing things like this, given the foreknowledge that we already have about what transpired when France wanted ECOWAS to intervene militarily in Niger, what would you be thinking the moment you hear that, they are actually Nigerian? Easily, you will just believe it. You will just believe it. Because why wouldn't they be Nigerian? Maybe that's the reason why all of a sudden the Macron who was angry with Tinubu suddenly became best of pals with Tinubu. Did you see what happened recently when he went there? They rolled out the red carpet. It was so, I've never seen, I don't remember the last time France received the leader of an African nation like that. It was unbelievable. Everybody was talking about it in the media. What is happening between these two? How can a nation like Nigeria in Africa be having such beautiful cordial relationship with a colonial master that has such a terrible legacy on the continent of Africa? And shortly after that, people now began to say, oh, so now we see why. Because if there was no compensation for the loss in Niger, France would not have received Tinubu the way they received Tinubu. Macron wouldn't have been so cozied up to Tinubu the way he was at that reception. This was probably a way of saying, thank you so much, my good friend, for actually replenishing what we had lost in Niger. So now you understand why everybody would be suspicious. Why many people, because in my post on X, I said, based on all that we have, I placed the card on the table for everyone. And I now said, who do you believe? Because the moment Chiane came and laid that allegation, the Nigerian government denied it. The Ministry of, is it information or something, came out and said it's a lie. Those things don't exist, which is normal. I now asked my people who follow me on X, I say, who do you believe? 99.9% say they believe the Niger Republic leader over Nigeria. Does that make any sense to you? Because people have followed the track record of those who are involved in this. Who is it that has the best intention for the African continent and for their people? Who is it that is actually doing things to support or maybe to please the colonial masters? And who is it that is doing something to please the masses? People who are watching know exactly who these guys are. So when that conversation began to gain momentum, I now said to myself, there is something that I have to say about this. And that's part of why I am making this video. And that thing that I want to say is, I want to attempt to do some dot connection for you. You know, I like to connect dots a lot, okay? I'm sorry that this is going to be probably a long video, but it's worth it. So I need you to come with me. Please stay with me. Many of you remember what happened in Nigeria when there was a protest against hunger in Nigeria. Just recently, some months ago, there was a massive protest all over. Protest against hardship, hunger, and the rest of it. And during that protest, something very significant and historic happened. We saw that elements in the north of Nigeria were screaming that the military should take over power from Nigeria, from Tinubu. We saw the video, right? You saw it, right? It was all over the place. And not only that, we saw masses of people in northern Nigeria waving Russian flag. It wasn't just in one place. From Kano to Kaduna to Bauchi to Sokoto, different places that you didn't even see in the media. People went on the streets waving Russian flags. How? Nobody in the south had even a Russian flag, let alone one to wave. But what happened that these other people in their numbers were waving the flags? Did it just happen during the protest? No. Here's how I connect my dots, and I want to do it with you. You remember that there has been rumors that Buhari is from Niger Republic. I don't know which is which. I don't have any verification. But Buhari got an approval, 30 billion naira or so, to build a road from Nigeria to Niger Republic, right? They were even talking about railway as well to Niger Republic. There were so many things that he did to show his proximity to Niger Republic. And we know that most of the people in that part of Nigeria share the same culture and tradition with those in Niger Republic, obviously. So when Niger Republic situation happened and the coup took place and Chani came to power, something happened to me. I said to myself, what if the guys on the other side of the border are also wishing for and planning for something like this to happen? It was just a wild guess in my head. And I went back and remember during the election in 2023, which was way before this coup happened in Niger, that there were plans by the Buhari admin to move Nigeria towards the BRICS alliance. Remember BRICS? BRICS is the alliance that provides us with a multipolar alternative to the unipolar world we have all been born into. I've explained this in so many videos. So he was moving more towards the BRICS very quietly, clandestinely. In fact, many believe that he had already sealed the deal to move Nigeria to BRICS and make Nigeria a permanent member of BRICS. But it wasn't going to be consolidated in his own term in office. He needed someone who was in the same boat with him to carry it out. And that was why there were rumors that Buhari wanted Osinbajo to be the next president. In fact, Osinbajo went to him and this day reported at some point that Buhari had given the best indication that he's actually going to endorse Osinbajo to become the president of Nigeria. But guess what happened? Because, if Osinbajo had become, that plan Buhari had to move Nigeria towards BRICS, which meant that Nigeria would now be allied with Russia, and that makes it easier for Nigeria to become another Niger Republic in the region. And when that happens, the British, like France, will lose Nigeria permanently forever. Then what happened? All of a sudden, Baba Tinubu roared like a lion from wherever. And the way he came to the primary, he won such a landslide in the primary that it didn't even look as if Osinbajo was on the ticket, was on the list at all. Every other person was mighty distant from his win. How? Why did that happen? Sagacity? Maybe. But don't you think that the people who own Nigeria had seen what was coming? That they were about to move Nigeria towards Russia and have vowed that the North had betrayed them by making that move. For you to know that there was a plan early enough to move Nigeria towards BRICS and towards Russia, the sensitization that led to the waving of the flags during the protest had been going on for several months, if not more than a year, before that protest happened. You can't just wake up one day and see people waving flags. You know how the Northerners behave. They go through their people on the ground. They were sensitizing all of them one by one. The people were so psychologically ready and prepared to become another Niger Republic in the sub-region. A Niger that is allied with Russia and that has thrown the colonial master out of the window. And I'm pretty sure the intelligence agencies of Britain and some European countries saw that and decided we need to find somebody who will be sold out to us and our policies. And they found our brother and made him to win. Now, let me tell you what you're going to see happen. Pay attention, please. These things I'm telling you, you won't see them openly in the media. What is going to happen now in Tinubu's administration is that the North is going to pay the price for betrayal. If you look at when that waving of flag happened, during the arrests of those who protested, the focus was mostly on the fact that they were waving Russian flag. They called it treason. The government of the day took it very seriously to show you that this is the bone of contention. Took it very seriously. And those kids were picked up. Why were you waving Russian flag? That is felony, treason in our country. You are inviting the military to come and take over power. The same way it happened in Niger. So now, here's what is going to happen. You should expect all of this to happen. Number one, I just told you, the North is going to pay a huge price for betraying the colonial powers. Before I tell you the price the North is going to pay, let me tell you what the colonials did to make the North the most privileged and entitled and the endowed people in Nigeria over the decades. The superiority complex they bestowed upon the North was not hidden. It was not in secret. Everybody knew about it and no one could do anything about it. Let me tell you, there was even this rumor that the British Union Jack, the Union flag, their symbol of colonization of all the colonies they colonized, that when they lowered it during the fake independence they had in Nigeria, that they never took it back to Britain to show that they have given up sovereignty to Nigerians. They left it on Nigerian soil. It's a rumor. I've heard that rumor from many high-level people. They said that Union Jack is left in the Sokoto Caliphate or Sultanate, and that is kept there as a symbol that these people who are keeping it are the eyes and the faces of the British colonial masters in Nigeria. So when you see an Hausa Fulani man, you are looking at your master, your colonial master. And this is how I grew up knowing it. Whether the Union Jack is there or not, the one that you can never deny is the fact that we grew up knowing the Hausa Fulanis in Nigeria as the overlords, as the kings, as the masters, while everyone else is the slave. It was by design, because these ones, from one of my research books, the colonial masters, I think it was Lord Lugard who referred to them as the preferred race. They are the preferred race. They say these are the most loyal that they could ever find in the whole of Nigeria, because anything they told the Hausa Fulani man to do, they did it. And so they adopted them as their face, as their proxy rulers of Nigeria. So every rulership they had went through these people. That's why the largest number of oil wells, oil that is in the southern part of Nigeria, that belongs to southern part of Nigeria, but of course belongs to the British. They tell you it is in our land, but the British own it. That same oil, a greater percentage of the oil wells, maybe 80-something%, belongs to the same northerners, the Hausa Fulani northerners.